corporate Money in the Bank ladder match that changed the world for professional wrestling. No. We ain't talking about Fight Island, Shaun. No. The man, Eddie Hearn. Matchroom Boxing. Big, huge mansion in London. Sits on acres and acres and acres and acres of land. Has decided to go to London and pitch an idea. Who am I kidding? There is no idea. This is actually legit real. Just like as real as Fight Island is. And Hearn is going to have boxing at his compound. What? Eddie Hearn, the boxer, the man behind Matchroom Boxing and the Zone. Boxing fight camp on his compound, on his acres of land, and we have the breakdown for you. We do. I'll show you it right now. Look at this. Here are some details. This is what the fight camp will look like. Can't notice? We got Sky Sports out there. The fighters will walk in. There will be no announcers at ringside at all. Where they will be, don't know. Heck, they might be with a computer, a monitor, and they might be watching it from inside the mansion. Don't know. 4 fight cards. 5 fights on each card. It'll take place over 28 days. First bout right now is ironed out at the fight camp at Eddie Hearn's mansion. Is Terry Harper versus Natasha Jonas for the WBC and the IBO title. Like, are you kidding me? That's the way that this is going to work out. Because everybody wants to know, well, what are the safety measures? Well, crew will be limited to 90 people. Masks will be worn by every crew member. 12 Matchroom employees, broadcast staff, board of officials, 8 to 9 medical personnel will all be there. 3 cornermen, 10 fighters per night. Quarantine venue hotel testing on arrival. Quarantined for 24 hours before the fight. Zoom press conferences and media calls only. Spit buckets with lids and bleaching. Ring ropes and canvas cleaned every fight. Temperature checks every time. What we will not see at Matchroom Fight Camp, we will not see ring girls. We will not see the crowd. We will not see entourages. And no ring announcers, like I mentioned at the beginning of this, is that the ring announcers will not be there.
Or ring announcers.
Right?
Like, they getting the raw end of this deal during this pandemic. My goodness.
And again, we mentioned spit buckets because there has been an ongoing issue about said spit buckets.
So the commission said no to spit buckets. Eddie Hearn said yes to spit buckets. And here's how he's going to get around that.
Because he says that we must have spit buckets. Well, you're going to get spit buckets. So each spit bucket will be wiped at each round, bleached before each fight. Cleaner must wear a face mask, eye protection, long sleeve, fluid repellent, gloves, and gown while interacting with said spit bucket.
So what are they going to look like? Nurses? Or somebody that's in a quarantine area? They're going to wear like white little tight suits and stuff like that? Like what?
They have to. They have to wear some kind of gowns. So instead of Fight Island, we get the backyard fighting at Eddie Hearn's mansion.
Well, who would have thought that we would have got an announcement of this magnitude before we know anything about Fight Island?
About what Fight Island's going to look like?
Yeah.
Yet now we know what a fight camp looks like on a compound.
Eddie Hearn was on his Instagram, and he's the one that let go of all this information.
Yes, he was. Because it was also mentioned that Nevada, as of this morning, you know, they okayed the fact that we get to now have fights in combat sports inside in Las Vegas. Is that Top Rank will have fight cards on the 9th, the 11th, and the 18th.
Which we'll talk about in the next coming weeks.
Right.
But you talk about this event here called Matchroom Fight Camp. And as you saw the images here regarding everything, it's a unique idea. The fact that he's holding it at his Matchroom headquarters in London on his 15-acre land, it's interesting. It really is, to see how he's going to do it. And my goodness, he has the backyard to do it. And the first fight, like you said, Terry Harper versus Natasha Jonas, was scheduled back in April 24th. Is now being moved to, the first fight is scheduled to happen mid-July. So we still got some time. We may get to Fight Island somewhere before that. But as of right now, we've at least got Matchroom Fight Camp. Got to make sure you slow that down to really convey the message about what it's called.
Fight Camp.
So it's interesting, but Eddie Hearn has been making multiple headlines. The fact that he's going outdoor, the fact that he created this camp, 4 fight cards over 28 days, 5 fights on the card. He's also making headlines today because of the fact that he during multiple interviews on Sky Sports or ESPN, it really didn't matter. He was all over the place today, conveying the message of that he plans to have a sit-down conversation with Dana White, and in which he made a very notable quote that it's going to be interesting to see what happens.
Here's the quote. I'm going to be reaching out to Dana White and saying, tell me how this works. Can we actually do this? Are we doing it in a ring? We doing it in a cage? Are we doing 1 round of each? It's really got a lot of momentum and a lot of promise. I think there's a really good chance it could happen. So again, we have Eddie Hearn in the middle of all this that's going on right now in the world of combat sports. Eddie Hearn is the one that has been, hey, I'm just going to throw out this nugget.
Well, that's the thing with Eddie Hearn is you saw that with DAZN in the celebrity boxing. So for him to go out and say that he wants to do a mashup event with boxing and UFC, it's really remarkable, because it doesn't surprise me for a guy with his mind and his intellect of figuring out how to reach multiple masses and get things done at a different clip. It's remarkable. So the interesting idea is that is the fact that he said he wants to do it in a ring and have it transform into a cage in between matchups. And the other thing too, that I was talking to our people over on Sided to get their votes and their takes on their thoughts about, would you watch a mashup event? And it's really split right now in terms of what people think they want to see. And really they're like, well, are we going to see it inside of a cage? Well, the whole idea is that a boxer versus an MMA fighter. You're going to have, that's his idea, is a boxer versus an MMA fighter.
And we've heard this idea thrown around for so much, right?
Yeah. So you're talking about a boxer versus an MMA fighter in a boxing ring, and an MMA fighter versus a boxer
in a cage.
In a cage. That's unique in itself.
Almost like their own version of war games. You get 2 rings, 1 boxing, and 1 inside of a cage. Oh, wait, we kind of had something like that with Bellator kickboxing.
But again, That's not what he's talking about.
No, I know. I'm just saying.
He's talking about somehow figuring out how to transition a ring to a cage. A ring to a cage. That's going to be a lot of work to try to do that in between your fights. Like,
yeah, because
the timing's got to be done correctly if you want to do that. Because, like you said, Bellator did it with Bellator kickboxing, and
but
Bellator,
they had to take it from the ceiling.
But yes, but I'm talking about that. You mentioned Bellator, it did it for them, but they had it for 2 separate rings. They had a cage set up and a ring set up. You're talking about now doing wrestling style then?
It's possible. Well, that's
so bring down a square cage instead of an octagon style cage? Bro, do you know how weird that sounds? Hanging from the ceiling high above.
But you couldn't do that because it's outside.
What's outside?
The fight camp's outside, and I'm sure Fight Island's going to be somehow outside unless it's going to be...
That's not what we're talking about. We're not talking about the Fight Island. We're talking about the matchup. The mashup event.
Yes, which that's exactly what I'm talking about. Is that if you're gonna put...
We're not talking about Fight Island because
then where are you
the fight camp is completely
where
different.
Are they going to do this mashup?
Who knows?
You think that it's going to be in Vegas?
No, they're talking about it at the end of the year.
Yes, I know.
By the end of the year, we're not going to be in the pandemic.
Shaun, we're talking about here. Vegas is home of Dana. Eddie Hearn is home of London.
Yeah, so you're doing it in New York. You're doing a neutral thing.
Where?
You can do it at Madison Square Garden. You can do it wherever.
Then why can't you do it? Why can't you hang a cage from the top?
Well, that's what I'm saying. Like, it'd still be ridiculous.
It's possible.
But that would be the only way to do it. But except for, have you ever seen an MMA fight in a square circle?
First time for everything. You're talking about a mashup unit here. Boxers versus MMA fighters.
I guess.
I wonder, how many people would actually sign on the dotted line? You got Conor McGregor that wants to fight Manny Pacquiao. Well, there's Eddie Hearn. You got Francis Ngannou that wants to go into boxing. Well, there you go. Anthony Joshua wants to don his big boy pants and jump into a MMA cage fight. So, you already have legit a laundry list of fighters that is literally like, hey, I'm up. I'm good for it. Like, there is so much money that is right there for the taking that could literally make this hey, how about this? Look, the Paul brothers versus Dylan Dennis, Conor McGregor on that card. You want to talk about something just blowing the roof off the place? You could also do it in Staples Center.
Yeah, no.
Just saying. You want to make something so absurd where everybody would pay to see this. There's your payment.
There's so
everybody said, oh, I won't watch the Paul brothers fight. They're making a mockery of boxing. Yeah, y'all did.
Right?
They made money.
So, see, after reeling you back and realizing we're on a different topic here, away from Matchroom Fight Camp thing, and realizing that we're talking about the mashup, See how crazy this sounds? How crazy that putting boxing and UFC together? But that's the crazy mind of Eddie Hearn. That's the craziest mind from Dana White. Dana White's been talking about Zuffa boxing for a long time. When he put the Floyd Mayweather...
I don't ever think that's getting off the ground, though,
he talked about Floyd Mayweather...
Yep.
And he talked about Conor McGregor, and the promotion for that fight was not just Conor McGregor, it was Zuffa boxing. Whether it legitimately gets off the ground, best believe that if this mashup happens, we're going to see Zuffa boxing branded all over the place again. That ain't going to go away. It's just whether it's going to just pop up in an entity rather than a full-blown promotion.
I can see that, honestly.
With the two splits here, we may very well, this may be the only way we see Zuffa boxing is by blending multiple avenues. And you can't tell me that you wouldn't want to watch it. I've got more yeses on Cited was saying that they want to see the matchup. They're just worried about the health of the fighters.
Yeah.
Because if you put an MMA fighter in a boxing ring, how well are they going to be trained? to absorb a fight and then vice versa.
Right, because again, you see firsthand, and take this for what it is. You saw Conor McGregor versus Floyd Mayweather, whether you liked it or you didn't, or you thought that it was a joke. Right.
That took training from Conor McGregor. Conor McGregor took time off out of his schedule to focus solely on boxing. So essentially for this is that if you want like a Francis Ngannou to go into a boxing bout in this mashup event with UFC and Eddie Hearn, he's got to now take time off from now till the end of the year, essentially, in order for this to make sense, because he can't take another fight. So at what point do we start to realize that this is really a moving part? Because Eddie Hearn said it himself. Like, this is moving. This is moving real quick. The fact that Dylan White came out and said that he would take on Francis Ngannou,
yep.
the fact that Dylan is a world-class kickboxer, was for 5 years in London in the British, the top dog in kickboxing, was a 2-time world champion. Guy's no pushover, Tristan. And you look at where this is going. You're talking about Dylan's going to fight Alexander Povetkin in the next couple months.
It's going to be a good fight.
So the talk is that at the end of the year, this mashup event
could very well happen.
So we may see a New Year's special.
And you're hearing it first on the DuCross brothers.
A New Year's special event that features the UFC and Bellator. I mean, UFC and boxing, excuse me. UFC and boxing, I'm thinking Bellator because Bellator is used to doing New Year's
co-branded
shows.
events and stuff.
So this will be unique in itself. And I was talking to you off air about how can they make this a big spectacle. Well, you got Dylan White, and you could do Francis Ngannou, okay? You can also do, so you do Dylan and Francis in the boxing aspect, because that's what Francis wants to do. That's what Dylan's willing to do.
Who do you put Anthony Joshua against?
You put Anthony Joshua in that cage against a guy like Stipe Miocic.
Dude, how crazy would it be? Just throwing this out there. Anthony Joshua versus John Jones.
Then John Jones has to move up to heavyweight.
Yes, he's already talked about moving up to heavyweight.
Or maybe Anthony Joshua can make 205.
But can you, like, the possibilities based off of what you hear on the outside and what you hear on the inside and what we've heard, that this is fast track, this is moving. And you're hearing it from the DuCross Brothers Sports Warriors right here, that this is fast tracked. This is moving.
They're listening to the fans and everything that is going on out there. It's a lot of moving parts. But there's real traction to this.
Absolutely
mashup.
now. Absolutely now. Absolutely.
Just like there was real traction when everybody was like, oh no, the Conor McGregor Floyd Mayweather thing's never going to happen.
But did you
it
think?
Happened.
But look, my whole thinking is we wouldn't even be talking about any of these fight camps, these fight islands, or these mashups if it wasn't for the pandemic, where you had to legit think outside the box, right?
Yeah.
How are you going to put on events? What will garner attention? How can you get money? Well, this is how you're going to do it, unfortunately, in the world we live in until we get to 2021.
Right? You got to absorb what you can and take your wins and losses where you can. And this would be a big win for combat sports. To do something on a big magnitude that will garner a lot of traction.
And
the
again,
fact that Matchroom has a lot of star-studded athletes that want to make the transition.
Yep. And thinking outside the box.
Accept the transition of other guys. Jorge Masvidal, Francis, Joshua.
You're telling me that the Diaz brothers wouldn't be interested in a payday in boxing?
You know how big you can make that event if you really wanted to? And the fact that you can probably label it underneath boxing, which means everybody gets paid.
Everybody gets a bigger payday?
Make more payday than you've ever done in your lifetime? Bro, that's
why wouldn't you want to sign on that dotted line?
That's a no-brainer to me.
That's what I'm saying.
Like, you put that contract in front of me right now, it's like, yes, please. I will go.
Where do I sign on the dotted line?
Just tell me, boxing, MMA. Where am I going?
As long as you get paid as a boxer.
If I'm Dana White and I'm Eddie Hearn and we're talking at some point this week, like, lay it down. Lay it all down. Bring everybody to the table.
That's what I'm saying. Dude, Shaun,
the possibilities are
we're
endless.
seeing a 24-team tournament in the NHL coming back. There might be a tournament style for the NBA. When NFL comes back, it'll be without fans, but there's something a little bit different about that. Baseball, a little bit different. I think, honestly, we're not going to see baseball. Baseball's done. I think we're going to get a strike.
They want a pay cut.
Oh, my God, dude, that's a joke and a half. So that leaves combat sports filling a void, a natural void right now in the sports world that for once they could come together as one and literally blow the roof off the world in combat sports.
Absolutely.
And it could be brought to you by Dana White and Eddie Hearn.
Astronomical proportions. Things can blow up and break revenue records, ratings records, gate records, everything by doing this mashup. Like, it's ridiculous.
You think Fight Island is going to...
If you miss this conversation, just rewind it back.
Right? Just
rewind it back.
Dial it back a little bit.
But you know what? We're going to go into our last break, then we're going to get back, and we're going to talk about